Following Tuesday's defeat of Kamala Harris, some Democrats are now starting to realize that they can no longer win with legacy mainstream media. In an article in Talking Points Memo, for example, Kate Riga admits the media environment is massively right wing, and so Democrats need to expand. She says, quote, "For the olds, it's Fox News, conservative radio, and Sinclair-owned local news. For the youths, it's the right-wing manosphere podcasts and streams that Trump so assiduously courted all campaign long." So there's people like Aiden Ross, the Nelk brothers, I think, or Nelk boys, and all those different right-wing, conservative podcasters, independent media. So it wasn't just Fox News. It was outside of Fox News. You had Newsmax, and then again, you had all these independent outlets. Okay. Now, she says it's a playing field that Republicans not only dominate, Democrats don't even compete. They still depend heavily on traditional media sources that simply don't operate the same way these right-wing PR arms do. And we know that these forms of media are powerful, they reach tons of people, and are seen as useful enough pawns that Russia has invested in some of them. And she's, of course, referring to Dave Rubin, and Tim Pool. Tim Pool would make about 400 grand a month. So about 100 grand per video for Russia, okay, to do Russian propaganda, essentially, right? Not only that, but Benny Johnson, the disgraced BuzzFeed plagiarist, had negotiated a $100,000 signing bonus with the Russians. And so, yeah, they were helping out these, I know, Tim Pool, "I'm not actually a right-winger, I am a disaffected liberal." And we all know how Dave Rubin started out his grift of saying, "I'm a classical liberal." Okay, sure. Now, in order to combat that, some Democrats are saying, okay, here's what we need. We need a liberal Joe Rogan. Now, Elie Mystal, for example, tweeted this: "People saying Harris should have done Joe Rogan are missing the point. That wouldn't have helped her. Liberals need to build their own Joe Rogan, someone who can speak to the people like he speaks to, without being a guy who wants to kiss ass to billionaires like Elon Musk." I like Elie Mystal, all right? A lot of his takes are usually pretty good. This one, not so good, okay? Mainly because I think he's missing the point. Like, I agree, like, yeah, you do want, politicians to be able to sit down and speak to a person who doesn't kiss a billionaire ass. That, I agree with that 100%. The problem with Rogan is that he's an incredibly wealthy person. Incredibly wealthy. And in order to build somebody like Joe Rogan on the left, I don't think you can do that, right? Now, that said, interesting point, Joe Rogan once endorsed Bernie Sanders. Just saying. The Democratic establishment, however, crushed Bernie Sanders, and I think that had the effect of driving Rogan bros to Donald Trump. Democrats had the chance to reach them through populist economic policy, and establishment Democrats said no, not at all interested. We want to serve the donors. So that's it. The thing is, though, you can't actually build a liberal Joe Rogan. Okay, and wanting to do so, I don't think is the correct approach, because the left is already filled with all sorts of online talent. You don't have to build anything from the beginning. You got people like Farron Cousins, all right, Mike Figueredo, the Humanist Report. You got David Dole, the Rational National. You got Kyle Kulinski, Secular Talk. You got the Serfs, Lance. You got myself. You got many others. Very talented people who have a leftist perspective that have been taking on the powerful and corporations for years. We're all here. We're all to the left of mainstream media. We do reach people, especially, and this is what's amazing about us, right? Not to toot our own horns, but like, we've been able to reach and build audiences without help, without billionaires, without institutional support. In fact, the institutional support, it does not go to us. It goes against us. They hate us. All right. The Democratic establishment hates independent progressive media and constantly sidelines us in favor of traditional media. In fact, Taylor Lorenz, wrote a great article spelling that out. Okay, she writes this: leftist creators have been repeatedly shunned by the Democratic Party establishment, and she uses the Harris campaign as an example. Quote, Biden began alienating progressive content creators before Harris even became the candidate, with this supporting a TikTok ban, right? When Harris did become the nominee, she showed a repeated refusal to engage with any creators challenging her ideology or policies. Now, look, one of the reasons that the Democratic establishment does not like lefty content creators is because we do have a tendency to criticize the Democratic Party. That doesn't come out of hatred of the Democratic Party. It comes out of, we know you can do better, okay? Or at least it started out that way, right? For a lot of us, is, hey, we think that you could do better on these issues. We think that maybe you could take on the powerful and, promote healthcare for all, like Medicare for all and things like that. And the Democratic establishment has shown nothing but disdain for us. Smear job after smear job, attacking not only us, but, candidates like, for example, at first, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, the smearing of Rashida Tlaib that continues, the smearing of Bernie Sanders and his supporters, sexist Bernie bros. That's what you get from mainstream media, okay? And the Democratic establishment, which constantly says, oh, we need to jettison the left. Just kick them all out. We got to get rid of the left. Kamala Harris was an incredibly centrist candidate who ran a centrist campaign, okay? After she had previously tried to run a progressive campaign in 2020 and failed to win her own state, okay? So she was like, okay, well, I'm going to go centrist. We're going to run a very careful campaign. The donors told me not to do, for example, to talk about, doing some price control, stopping price gouging when it comes to groceries. So the donors told me not to do it. Okay, I'm going to run a centrist campaign, and we're not going to be, we're going to pick Tim Walz, but then we're going to put him in a basement. Tim Walz is great. I'd love to see him run in 2028. All right, the guy's a great guy. I like him. But they definitely muzzled him, okay, and said, stop calling Republicans weird because we're going to be hanging around with Liz Cheney, okay? So don't do any of that stuff, all right? So, and don't talk about the stuff that you did in Minnesota, which was incredibly effective. You fed children, okay? Universal free school lunches. It's a wonderful idea, a progressive idea, and an idea that people like, all right? That was not part of her platform, okay? Not part of her platform. There was some good stuff, right? Helping out homeowners, as well as like the $6,000 child tax credit. Great. Expand on it. But she didn't. They didn't. But anyway, getting back to the left, right? Look, when Harris became the nominee, she would not go on progressive media, okay? Even the big ones wouldn't go on progressive media. Stuck to MSNBC, stuck to CNN, even went on Fox News, okay? And so, that definitely limited her exposure, her not being able to go on these different platforms and actually answer some of these hard questions, okay? Now, instead, she went on mainstream Democrat loyalist centrist creators, okay? They were very very little cultural relevance, were welcomed at the DNC. This is Lorenz writing this, and at campaign rallies, invited to speak and collaborate with the campaign, people like Olivia Giuliana, okay? While influencers who challenged the Harris campaign on issues like the war in Gaza, spread more populist messaging, were not granted access or similar opportunities. I remember when you had the DNC convention and Hassan Piker was there and he literally got kicked out. They booted him out because he was talking about Gaza. Gone. Just gone. And so that's how they treat independent leftist content creators. That's the Democratic Party. Okay. Now, compare that to the right wing. Lorenz writes that over the past 2 decades, conservatives have built a flywheel of cross pollination. Right wing content creators frequently appear on each other's shows and lift up smaller YouTube channels, podcasters, and up and coming creators. This results in an extended network of voices that reaches a wide range of conservative leading audiences. Conservative influencers are also able to rapidly gain credibility because influential Republican figures like Trump are willing to engage with them, appear on their podcasts, speak to them for their newsletters, or guest in their live streams. Compare that to, again, the Democratic Party, which doesn't do that. There's only a couple of Democratic politicians that are in office. Ro Khanna is one of them, who actually do consistently independent progressive media. AOC used to do independent progressive media. She doesn't do that anymore. And so Bernie Sanders had done independent progressive media, doesn't really do that as much anymore. And so that's kind of a problem, right? You need to have these politicians that are willing to step outside of the mainstream media bubble and actually meet people where they are. Okay. And they would do well to do more of that. Now, that said, getting back to right wing content, there's a lot of money behind right wing content. I don't think you should be at all surprised by that. Now, Lorenz writes, wealthy donors, PACs, and corporations with a vested interest in preserving or expanding conservative policies strategically invest in right wing media channels and up and coming content creators. This creates a well-oiled pipeline for conservative influencers, young TikTokers, YouTubers, live streamers, or podcasters are discovered, developed, and pushed to larger platforms, often with the financial backing of conservative billionaires or organizations on the right who have long recognized the content creator industry a valuable means of shaping public opinion and policy. There is simply zero equivalent of this massive infrastructure on the left. Don't I know it? Don't we all know it? We know we don't have any of that. Soros checks? Never seen one. Not one. Okay. Not only that, but of course, one of the problems here is the platforms that we're on. I'm on Facebook. I'm on YouTube. I was on Twitch, right? You know what they're all owned by? Billionaires. Okay. Billionaires. And unfortunately, they all tend to promote right-wing content. They do. They do. It's just a fact. Okay. Now, she also notes that leftist channels do not receive widespread financial backing from billionaires or large institutional donors, primarily because leftist content creators support policies that are completely at odds with what billionaires want. Left-leaning influencers argue for things like higher taxes on the rich, regulations on corporations, and policies that curb the power of the elites. Wealthy mega donors aren't going to start pouring money into a media ecosystem that directly contradicts their own financial interests. And so, progressive creators are left to rely on meager crowdfunding efforts to make a living. And don't I know it? It is not good. If you are wondering why so many once left-wing creators have went to the right, it's because of this, okay? If you're not lucky enough to have the support of your fans through a Patreon, which I do have, and I do desperately need some people to sign up, you either burn out and quit or you sell out. I don't find either prospect appealing whatsoever, okay? I'll quit before I ever go conservative, right? I would, because I couldn't do it. I couldn't be dishonest to not only you, but to myself as well. I mean, it just goes completely against who I am as a person, much less a creator. I just can't sit there and BS to people, all right? So that's it. I mean, but look, understand that this is a state of progressive online media, all right? So this is what you have. You have no support, okay? Very little money, Um, very little organic growth. It is incredibly slow. All right. In fact, look, after the election, I lost a bunch of subscribers. Okay. Just gone. Gone. Um, and views, disastrous since the election. And I understand, of course, that people have to take some time to process what happened. This was a major defeat, disaster. So I don't blame anybody at all for taking some time for themselves to do self-care, essentially, because you can't fight if you're overwhelmed. You can't care for other people until you give yourself a little self-care, right? And make sure that you're healthy enough to fight. So I understand people like taking breaks and not watching all the content and stuff, but there is a need for support here, and I want to continue to do what I'm doing, to continue to highlight these issues and continue to fight for progressive policy, even though we are so far behind that I'm aware of, for the possibility, or for the fact that the things that I am fighting for today, universal health care, I will never see it in my life. But one day, someday, I hope that there is a world where everybody's needs are taken care of. Everybody's got a home. Everybody's got food. Where, everybody has health care. Okay? That's what I'm fighting for at the end of the day. We just got to get there, right? And I might never see it, and that's okay. And that's okay. Now, at the end of the day, though, one of the big problems here, and why I really want to talk about this article, or these articles, this topic, is that I don't ever see the Democratic Party currently supporting its lefty creators. They don't even engage with them, all right? And I know this suddenly there's this now, this talk after this second defeat by Trump, like, oh, we got to build a Joe Rogan. You don't need to build a Joe Rogan. You've got plenty of talented creators right here. If you just invest in them, invest a little bit of time, maybe a little bit of money. It doesn't have to be billionaire corporate funding. That's the last thing that we want. But we need support more than ever. And for mainstream media to stop shunning us, and the party to stop shunning us. That's it. Just a little bit of support. Okay? But until that happens, they're going to continue to cede the space to the right wing. And we see how disastrous that has turned out for them and for us, because they're losing elections. They're not reaching people. They've ignored us. They've crushed us, now to their own detriment. And as a result, we're all suffering. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please like, share, subscribe, hit the bell icon in order to get notified whenever a new video is released. And if you want to support independent, progressive media through this difficult time where it seems like everybody is shutting down, you can become a member on our YouTube page, you can become a subscriber on Facebook, or you can go to my Patreon. It's patreon.com/Jeff Waldorf. Thank you.